Hi, it's Jason again at the Centre for Computer History, and we are today at the Acorn World exhibition that we've got on, set up by the guys from ABUG, and we have got a number of machines on display, quite a few, that are sort of documenting Cambridge and, well, Acorn specifically, computing history. Let's start with some of the stuff on the timeline. We've got here an Acorn System 1. So the machine you can see there is sort of Acorn's first computer, sort of sandwiched there to two boards, keyboard and a display on the top. You can see just about there that the display is made out of kind of a calculator display, and you've got the board underneath, which is the processor board. We've got an unmade kit as well on display and the circuit diagram. There you go, and some of the components used to make the board. Things like the 6502 processor. So there you go, that's the System 1. Just next to it here, we have got a System 5. So this is sort of the high end of the range. A keyboard there that looks suspiciously like an Atom, using the same sort of casing. And you can see there it's kind of based around a rack. So you've got these cards that go inside it with the boards and the drives at the end there. You can see it's running Acorn DOS there. Nothing running on at this point in time. So that's one of the system units there. There's lots of information on display as well, so the guys from ABUG have put together a lot of information that you can pick up and have a read of. Over here we have an Atom. And actually I've gone kind of the wrong way there, so let me go over to this one first. So this is a System 3, and that's another one of the early Acorn systems in this sort of rack configuration. You've got kind of a naked keyboard there. You see it says Acorn keyboard. That's another one of the system units, and then we go on to the Acorn Atom, playing a game there on this lovely green screen monitor. So the Atom there, the next machine, sort of in the line, and to have a sort of a plastic moulded case, which like I say, very very similar to the moulding they use for the system units. Along here, we have, this is an issue 1. So this is an issue 1 BBC Micro. I'm just about to see that on there, I think. And a very early version of the linear power supplies that they used to use on those machines. Not many of those got out into the wild, really. A lot of them were recalled. So yeah, quite recognisable. A lot of the BBC Micro layout, but a very very early revision of the board. And actually, not a lot of the connectors are actually in there. So underneath the connectors, things like the user port and the 1 MHz bus port, they're just not there. So the very early version is not having quite the connectivity the later ones did. This is an issue C board. So this is actually a prototype of the American BBC version they did, which is actually a very very similar layout to the sort of things like the issue 7s and things. Basically, when they produced the first versions, they did a very very similar version for the States, which was the same as the normal BBC Micro, but because of problems with shielding and FCC approval, they had to do a completely new layout, and encase it in metal as well. We'll come on to that. So over here, if anybody's been watching the channel before, they might recognise this machine as being Steve Ferber's machine that he made. I've got a video of it there that we made earlier on, which check out the YouTube channel. So yeah, this is kind of the prototype of the Proton. So the prototype of the BBC Micro in a way. Some of the information, the ideas used for the way memory is handled came from that machine. So that's a unique machine there, made by Steve Ferber. That you won't see anywhere else. A little bit further along the line, we've got some of the classic games that are available for the BBC Micro. Speech, Citadel there, some of the Acorn soft titles, that brings back a lot of memories for a lot of people. Carousel there, Graphic Adventure Creator, Rebs, Jetpack, the legendary Jetpack and Sabre Warfare, some classic Ultimate games. Actually in the cabinet there as well, we've got a load more. Program Power, remember those? Program Power, and what was the name that they had? escapes me. So yeah, the Repson and the Strikers run up there. Next we have a BBC Micro with the absolute classic user guide there. That will bring back a lot of memories for a lot of people. This BBC Micro has been signed by quite a few of the Acorn team. Herman Hauser there, Chris Curry, Sophie Wilson, Andy Hopper, Chris Turner. And Steve Ferber, obviously. So there's BBC Micro, just a standard B playing, obviously, Chucky Egg. Got to have that playing. A couple of the magazines, remember those? The old Owl magazines? There's issue 1 and 2 there. Obviously we've got some of the other ones, Acorn Users and various others at the time. I was talking earlier about the BBC Micro that they supplied in the States. This is the actual production versions. See the layout of the board, apart from being dusty, is actually quite a lot different from the BBC Micro that we know and love in the UK. And it is full of metal. This thing actually weighs quite a bit. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm going to lift it to show you how heavy it is. That's not going to work at all, is it? But anyway, there you go. So there's the BBC Micro they made for the States. Basically, it failed FCC approval, and they had to do everything they could to get it through the FCC approvals. And ultimately, that basically meant encasing it in metal. We've taken the top panel off so you can actually see it. But yeah, big heavy lump of a BBC Micro. Then we have on the display, we've got the Electron and a demonstration cartridge that you've got in the back there that shows you some of the graphics and things that it was capable of. Electron was a great little machine. It was a cut down version of the BBC Micro, and unfortunately has a story that goes with it that was a little bit of the downfall of Acorn at the time. Lots and lots of these were made ready for Christmas sales, and those Christmas sales never really materialised. The market in the UK was struggling, and yeah, a lot of them were left in warehouses. Next, we have the BBC Master. So this is the big boy version of the BBC Micro, and a bit more capable machine. Had disk drive facility built in. The BBC Micro, you had to add the DFS and the disk controller to it. It wasn't standard, but in the BBC Master it was. Don't know what that's playing. Something. So yeah, that's the BBC Master. A lot of people remember those from school. I've got an interesting one here. This is the Acorn Communicator, sort of an all-in-one communications tool that's really kind of the brainchild, I suppose, and the pet project of Chris Curry. And actually on top, so the machine's running there, but on top here, this machine is actually one of the prototypes. This is, we'll get to it, it's a bit messed up there. This is serial number 4, I don't know if that's visible. So this is serial number 4 of the quite rare anyway communicator, and it's actually given to us by Chris Curry, so we thank him very much indeed for that. So that's communicator. You can look online to find out a lot more about that. We've also got the Briefcase Communicator, which is basically that machine built into a briefcase, as the name might suggest. Little display now about ARM and the ARM processor. So we've got here, starting from this end, this is the original ARM processor, ARM1, and we've also got the champagne bottles that were basically opened every time they sort of released a new chip or had a new chip made. So we've got the ARM processor, and originally it was a set of 4 for their machine. So you had VIDC, MEMC, and IOC. And their relative champagne bottles that were opened, and you can see, I don't know if you can see actually, but we'll try and get in there, the writing on them. So each one has writing on to say when it was open and what it was for. So you've got MEMC on that one there. I don't know if it's particularly in focus, and IOC over there as well. I think it's just focusing on the chip, isn't it? Anyway, so that's those, and then we've got some of the diagrams. Better to have a look from up here of the layout of those chips. So there's ARM1 there, and actually I'm standing on ARM1 as well. So on the floor here, zoom out. So we have the ARM processor printed out 25 meters square on the floor. We've had that at the museum for a while now, since an ARM event we did a while back, but we've mostly covered it here. So then we have the ARM coprocessor, the ARM development system, again with another ARM chip at the centre there. So this was a cheese wedge that you could buy, and it would go connect to the BBC Micro to allow you to develop ARM software. This one's kind of interesting. That looks pretty ugly, but this one doesn't look too bad. This is the Acorn M500. So is it M500? It's not. It's an A500. I knew that didn't feel right. The A500. So the A500 was an internal only machine. These were never sold and were used internally at Acorn for various things. You can see here some of the mods and things that are inside these things. So there's a whole ton of little modifications there on the board. I don't know if they're PAL chips or something like that. Gals, I don't know. Rodine drive, by the looks of it. They're at the front, so sort of a drive there that's connected. I think that one is it MFM or not sure. Can't see through the screen that I've got here at the minute. But they used a number of different various machines. So, but anyway, these are quite rare. You don't see A500s very often. We've got a few of them here at the museum. Well, about two and a half, I should say, to be more accurate, of those machines there. It's not on at the minute for some reason. Right, let's crack on. A310 and Zarch. So this is David Braben's game, kind of sort of 3D game there, created by David Braben for the A310, and it's a lovely looking machine as well. Beautifully clean. There we go, so zoom in on that a little bit. Along with mouse, it's nice red keys, in keeping with the BBC Micro. So that's the A310, really nice example of that. Next to it, we've got the A4. So this is a laptop that Acorn produced. This is actually, again, it's a prototype version. So this is number 1 of 7, I think, if I can read that on the screen properly. So this is the Acorn Riscos laptop that was available. Quite expensive at the time, so not that many years old, and that makes them fairly uncommon now. There you go, there's Zarch, if anybody wants to have a look at the cover there. Loads of information on these things as well. You can just pick them up and have a look. Chocks away, we've done a video talking about that online before, check that out. The A5000 next. Let's have a look. There you go, there's the A5000. Got a piece of card on it, let's get rid of that. Right, so there's the A5000. So yeah, a bit of a square boxy thing, not mega interesting. But did play some good games. Then we have the Risk PC with its ginormous monitor and no keyboard. Why have we got no keyboard? Oh, probably to stop people messing with the demo. So this has got, there's very little demo scene software done for the Archimedes. But this is one on the Risk PC. Really good, classic, very much like a lot of demo scene stuff that you see on Amigas and stuff like that. And obviously the Risk PC had great technical ability, so you can get some really cool looking stuff out of it. Got a pair of Commodore speakers on it. I'm not sure that's allowed. Did Acorn ever make speakers? I don't think they did. So maybe we have to do that. But anyway, sounds great and looks brilliant as well. What's the next thing that comes up on the screen before we crack on? Oh, bit of Bill Gates, bit of video. I'm not sure if there's something to be said from that video. I don't know if they're getting at something. But Bill Gates going down a spiral into oblivion by the look of it. Anyhow, we'll move on. So yeah, the keyboard's behind there. I think it's just stopping people messing with the demo. Then we go into some of the later stuff, and we've got set-top boxes and network computers there. Bottom one's the online media prototype for their online video system that was trialled in Cambridge. Acorn NC network computer there, and an exemplar version as well, the Matrix NC. And the fabled Phoebe, a machine that was halfway through development when basically it was canned. I'm going to try and move this now one-handed so you can have a look inside. The Phoebes are very rare. There are a number of Phoebes that you see around, but they're basically just yellow empty cases, a bit like PC cases really. This is a real Phoebe. It was the only working Phoebe in the world. I say was, because now it don't. But we are having some very clever people look at it, and we hope that we're going to get this back up and running again, but who knows. We'll have to see. But yeah, so there's the Phoebe. Like I say, A little bit poorly at the minute, but hopefully it'll be okay soon. So there you go, that's the Phoebe. So that's the end of the timeline. There's a few things. We've got the Acorn Stalk notebook as well. There's things like that. This is only a tiny little bit of our collection, but is enough to make a little bit of a timeline of Acorn history. Other things going on. Let's take a look. So we've got the ABUG guys in here, and they're doing some amazing stuff still with a lot of the systems today, creating new interfaces and things like that. So we have a turtle. It seems to be unmanned at the minute, but we had the Valiant Turtle. There's a couple of Valiant Turtles there. And there's also the BBC Buggy. You see that there? So the Valiant Turtle is a kind of a wireless turtle that could be controlled via infrared and draw these shapes all over your floor. And it was great because you could type in logo code and draw patterns on the floor and learn basically about sort of simple coding. So I spent time messing around with logo at school. It was brilliant. Never really had the turtle though. The turtle was another dimension. Brilliant. Music 500. This is an interface that you could get. We've actually got the Music 500 and the 5000 there connected to a master. And this was a sort of a much better synthesizer that was available to plug into the BBC Micro to create some tunes on. We've got this is the Doomsday System. And the Doomsday System, it's not as bad as it sounds. This was a celebration of 900 years of the original Doomsday book, and it recorded lots of information about the UK in sort of mid-80s and stored it on Laserdisc. Laserdisc, these sort of 12-inch silver discs, like massive CDs. But the trouble is with the project is pretty much out of date before it was even released. So the media, the Laserdisc media, was obsolete before the end of the project, and it was very expensive as well. So actually only places like libraries and schools and research institutes had them. So very few and far between, but we've got one up and working here today on the display. You cannot have a display without having, well, an Acorn soft anyway, an Acorn display without having Elite. So we've got Elite, and we've got it running on the BBC Master there. And we also have it running on an Archimedes A440. So we've got various flavours of Archimedes here. Can't not have really, can we? Again, don't know if I can do this, but this is pretty awesome. This is a touchscreen. So this is just a standard cub monitor with this big fat screen that goes around it, so you can see how deep it is from there to there. And it allows you to, I think if we touch that, that do it? It's quite slow to react. There you go, so we can clear the screen and we can select black and we can draw. Oh, bit of an iffy nose and an iffy mouth. But I think you'll agree. Actually, if you could look at me behind the camera, that looks exactly like me. So full marks there for some fantastic artwork. That's the BBC Micro there, so that's the Microvitech touchscreen. Way ahead of its time. Pretty cool. So this is another BBC Micro. You're going to hear this a lot. So this is just a games area, basically, playing some of the games. Oh, A3010, we haven't seen that one before. So that's the an Archimedes, but in sort of console form, not console, but home computer form. A bit like the Atari ST and the Amiga. Good machine, actually. Some pretty good games for it. Another BBC doing some stuff. This is our programming area, so you can actually pick up an information guide and you can start typing in code. It tells you how to use the BBC, and you can do some Hello World. We zoom in on that. There you go. Some Hello World code, or start doing loops and variables, and just to introduce people that aren't sort of used to the concept of programming. Just some simple stuff. To get scripts with the BBC Micro. And the good stuff is you can do it on the BBC Micro, but then you can do it again in Python on the Raspberry Pi or whatever. You know, it's not that dissimilar to languages of today, Python especially, really. Okay, let's have a wander over here. More stuff going on. What do we got? This is Acorn Education. That, if I'm not mistaken, is a game called Granny's Garden. That may be a game that you remember from school. Oh look, there's cover. There you go. So, Granny's Garden with a particularly scary granny on the cover there. I think you'll agree. Can we press spacebar? So it says that's not very nice. Would you like to help would you like to help the King and Queen? No. That's not very nice. Oh, hello, yeah, so they were stuck in a loop. So you can't do it, it's completely on rails. So we have to say yes. Yeah, there you go. So a bit of an adventure game. And yeah, it's quite good fun just to argue with it all the time. Look at those graphics. Amazing. I'm assuming that's a bird. Oh yeah, it was. So anyway, there you go. This is the turtle again. This is the machine that's running the turtle. So there's the BBC buggy. There's the turtle. Oh, they're on charge at the minute. That's why. Because these things run wirelessly, so they need batteries. And they're currently on charge. But you can type in some turtle code. You can type in some logo code and get the turtle to move around on the floor. Or you could just do it on the screen. You didn't have to have the turtle itself. You could create patterns on the screen. So over here, I'm going to miss that because that's pretty exciting. So these are just more beebs running. Some of this stuff is modern code. This is Beeb OPL. So we've got an OPL synthesizer, or at least I say we have. The ABUG guys have. Beeb OPL synthesizer running on a BBC Micro. So you've got kind of FM synthesis on a Beeb, which actually back in the day they weren't capable of. That looks fairly interesting. So these are some of the modern games that are available. So games are still being written for the BBC Micro today, and in this case the Electron. Well, this is the Electron with the +3 interface. They're quite uncommon. Yeah, Darkness of Ravenwood there. Return for the main menu. So it's loading from disk at the minute. Pretty good graphics really for an Electron. Is it loading? I don't know. Oh, nice. 2, play the game. So the camera's a bit wobbly. Come on, I haven't got to go. Hey, look at that. So pretty good graphics for an Electron of its time. So that's a modern game on the Electron there. Oh, well, I'm getting some support here. There you go. Look at that. Actually, Jason, one of the guys from ABUG, said to me it looks like Monkey Island, and he's actually incredibly right. I was going to say exactly right, but incredibly come out. I don't know why. He's exactly right. It does. Here we've got Riscos running on a Pi. Riscos Pi. There you go. This is all sort of modern stuff, doing clever things. I mean, this is teletext animation. This is pretty awesome. Yeah, so it's just teletext graphics there running as video. I mean, it's brilliant. This machine's, getting on a bit now, 30 odd years old, or maybe it's nearly 40, I don't know. Yeah, all this really cool stuff is still happening on it, all modern stuff. Another Pi there, modern game. So this is the board from an Ionics machine by the looks of it. Haven't got an Ionics out, we probably should have, but we haven't. But that's the board that went inside one. Over here, who remembers fractals? So this is a BBC Master creating fractals, and that just kind of gives you an idea of what they were capable of back then. Very, very slowly. That's pretty much real time these days. So BBC Micro, they're doing fractals, and this is Raspberry Pi and beyond. The ARM X6 and the titanium. Lovely machine. I love that keyboard. I want one. They're quite expensive. Bit of video there playing on the system. Beautiful render of an apple. So I think for this room, I think that's probably about it. Obviously the museum's got all this other stuff, but there is one last bit I want to show you before we go to the ABUG room. I'm going to do a separate video on these because this is amazing. But did you know things like the UK lottery, all the graphics were done on one of them, a RISC PC. So you could control it. You had another screen over here that allows you to control what happened on the screen. So if we want our last ball to be chosen, you can see there we were on the last number there. If I choose, so if I go down, and actually I won't point it out, so I'm going to click on, say, number 27, and on the screen up here, I'll click the button, 27, and then it goes onto the bonus ball, and I'm going to pick 36, and this week's bonus ball is, so yeah, look at that. A lot of BBC TV graphics was done on things like RISC PCs. Which is pretty cool. We got, and was that national? No, it's not national. That is Children in Need, I think, and various games that were played. So we're going to do another video on this because there's a lot of information. So that's something to come. Anyway, so let's go through and have a look. So this is the main gallery, and loads of stuff there going on. there. So there's all the machines. Been a very busy day. Hopefully hopefully it is now, winding down a little bit towards the end of the day.